Chapter 9. Drifttail and his gang of 8 were all river rats, robbers and bullies, no strangers to violence, assassins all. They scoured the rivers and streams far and wide, stopping wherever the pickings looked good. Their strategy was simple. They hid among the waterways, ambushing defenceless travellers, lone wanderers and small families. Any creature who could be easily intimidated became their victim. Of late, life had not been very lucky to the river rats. Prey was seemingly thin on the ground. They were forced to work for a living, fishing in the waters and grubbing along the banks for berries, fruit and any edible vegetation. At the moment, they had camped on the inlet of a high-banked broad stream, which wended its way over the heath and flatlands southwest of Mossflower's vast woodlands. Dawn was rising as Drifttail climbed the sloping bankside to watch for movement amid the scrub and gorse. Behind him, the others were lighting a fire and scratching about to put together some kind of breakfast. 4 were trawling the waters for stray fish, while the others gathered wood and dug for roots. Drifttail's stomach gurgled sourly. He had not eaten for a day and a night. Rising spring dawn in all its beauty was lost on the rat leader. He had seen sunrises come and go, most of them hungry ones of late. Suddenly his keen eye caught a stirring. Wandering about a flat rocky patch, a stone curlew strode warily in pursuit of insects. The bird pecked at something, lost it and called its soft, plaintive cry. Goi! Drifttail could not believe his good fortune. Unwinding the sling from about his lean waist, he selected a few pebbles from his pouch. Crawling stealthily along on his stomach, he tried getting closer to the curlew for an easy shot. The bird froze momentarily, then began walking again, as though it sensed it was being hunted. It paced off in the opposite direction from Drifttail, not yet frightened enough to leave the flat rocks where the insects lived. Drifttail moved forward a little more, loading a pebble into his sling. Then he crouched and began whirling it. The curlew, immediately hearing the disturbance, did a short hop, skip and winged off into the air. The river rat leader let the sling wrap around his paw, mentally cursing the lost breakfast. Just then, spying a white fox, he fell flat amid the scrub and watched it approach from the west, oblivious to his presence. Drifttail swiftly back-shuffled to the stream bank. Sliding down the side, he hissed urgently to his gang. Throw sand on the fire quick. Army cells. Line base comes this way. A moment later, all mundane activities had ceased. The rat gang, armed with a motley assortment of weaponry, broken knives, sharpened sticks and stone-topped clubs, crouched below the bank top behind their leader. Run-Eye, a rat with a leaking squint, peered over the rim at their intended prey. What sort of beast be that underdrift? Drifttail grabbed Run-Eye's tail and pulled him down. That's a foxer, funny white and got a curvety sword and a little bag of victuals too. One of the gang ventured a peek over the bank top. Maybe our foxer be a good bit of sword and not for a kind. Drifttail hauled the speaker down and cuffed him scornfully. Get out of it. I'm the on foxer. There's lots of us. We'll lay him flat. That curvety sword and the nice belt what foxer's wearing, they mine. Yeah. He slitted his eyes, glaring fiercely at the gang until they lowered their gaze. Knowing the prizes were his without question, he lorded his sling with a rock the size of his paw. We all shares the victuals out. The white fox was close to the bankside when Drifttail popped up and launched his stone, striking the fox on the side of his jaw. He did not fall, but clapped a paw to his face, staggering about, half-stunned. Drifttail howled triumphantly. Quick now, get him! Gang charged out and mobbed the white fox, dragging him down. A blow from Run-Eye's club finished the job, knocking the fox unconscious. They bundled him down the bank to the stream's edge. Drifttail dashed down the slope in time to kick one of the gang who was wielding a rusty knife. Mudhead not killing him yet. I want words with this one. Whilst the rats fought over the fox's small ration bag, Drifttail relieved his captive of the belt and sickle sword. Grabbing some tough vines, he bound the prisoner's paws together and slung water over the fox's head to revive him. It took a while for the strange creature to come around. He struggled briefly with his bonds and then looked up at the ugly, grinning faces around him. Run-Eye sniggered nastily. Got yourself in a bit trouble now, pretty white foxer. Elbowing Run-Eye out of the way, Drifttail leaned down and drew the sickle-shaped sword. What name be you called, foxer? The captive glared at Drifttail but maintained his silence. The river rat tapped the point of the blade on the fox's chest. "You be dumb or you just stupid, eh? I be chief around here. When I ask question, you answer quick or I'll skin you slow. Where do you come from then, foxer? Speak." The prisoner stared levelly, unafraid of the rat. "From the land of ice, across the great sea." Drifttail had never heard of or seen a great sea. He kicked the fox savagely. "Ah, fibberloy, how you cornered? How you cornered with, eh? The white fox replied flatly. "We came in a great ship, a band of us, 100 strong, led by Gulo the Savage." Drifttail sensed a note of contempt in his captive's voice. He kicked the bound fox several times more. Then he strutted around the stream bank, doing a bad imitation of the fox's voice for the benefit of his gang. "Oh yes, I come on a big shipping with the Chong's band of 100 and Gulo the Savage. Ah, we be scared, eh?" Hoots of derision came from the river rat gang, taking a cue from their chief's disbelief of the fox's explanation. One of the rats began pretending he was all of a tremble. He knelt down by the bound fox, wailing piteously, "Why, I be real frightened. Save me, save me." The fox waited for the jeering to die down before he replied, "So you should be feared, stupid fool." Drifttail struck him across the face with the flat of his sword. "You got a small tongue, foxer. Before I chop it off, tell me, where be all these honoured beasts and your big logo now, eh?" For the first time since his capture, the white fox smiled. He stared over at Drifttail's shoulder at the top of the bank. "Right behind you, rat." Boom, 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 boom. Drifttail and his gang whirled round at the sound. White foxes and ermine, all armed to the fangs, lined the bank top. 2 of them bore a large, elaborate banner between them. Another 2 were positioned on each side of an ornate drum. Standing between them, beating the drum, stood a beast straight out of a nightmare, Gulo the Savage. He exuded power and ferocity. With eyes glittering insanely and saliva dripping from his bared fangs, he struck the drum one more time. Boom! As he pointed the drumstick at the rats, his army swept down on them, chanting, "Gulo, Gulo, Gulo, Gulo." Petrified with fright, the small river rat gang was swiftly surrounded. This army looked more vicious and numerous than they could imagine. Gulo stalked past them disdainfully, followed by 2 of his captains, a white fox, Shard, and an ermine, Dirk, and 4 guards. Further up the bank, they set the stolen standard up and laid the drum flat, where Gulo could sit on it. Closely guarded, the river rats were forced to sit on the stream edge, well away from Gulo. They were left to ponder their fate in silence. Any beast who tried to look up or whisper was soundly beaten with spear butts. After a while, Zerik, the white fox whom they had held captive, came among them. He seized Drifttail by the ears, dragging him free of the rest. Yanking the belt from the rat leader and retrieving his sword, he gestured upstream. "Lord Gulo will seize you now." Now that a fire had been lit for him, Gulo perched on the rim of the drum, holding a bulrush stalk over the flames. Spitted on it was the very curlew which had eluded Drifttail but had not been so lucky when one of Gulo's ermine had brought it down with a well-aimed arrow. Not bothering to have the bird plucked, Gulo was roasting it. A rank stench of burning feathers hung on the air. The wolverine savage glanced up as Zerik thrust Drifttail into his presence. The 4 guards shoved the rat into a kneeling position within reach of Gulo, who continued his cooking as he eyed the trembling river rat. Gulo the Savage was well aware that he created this effect in lesser beasts. Drifttail's eyes began flicking back and forth, betraying his fear. He almost leapt up at the sound of Gulo's harsh, grating tones. "What are you doing round here yet? What name do you go by?" Drifttail strove to keep the shrillness of panic out of his voice. "We lives on the water, fish and get roots to eat. I be called Drifttail, lord." The rat's voice faltered as Gulo stared at him. Taking the curlew from the fire, Gulo tested it with a long, sharp claw. "Drifttail, you ever see one like me passing hereabouts?" The rat shook his head vigorously. No, never seen one like you afore round here, on me life, no. After pulling the bird off its spit, Gulo took a bite, his wicked fangs ripping through burning feathers and bone into the still raw meat. Without warning, he lashed out with the thick bulrush spit, whipping it into Drifttail's face as he roared. You lie, rat! Where is the walking stone? Speak! Tears spilled from Drifttail's eyes as he nursed his stinging face. Lord, I not lie, or I be walking stone. The bulrush whistled through the air again and again, each time followed by Drifttail's pitiful screeching. Gulo the Savage threw aside the broken rush stalk. Digging his claws into the rat's narrow chest, he dragged him forward, bringing his face close to Drifttail's ear. Gulo rasped. I'll ask you again, rat, and this time you'd best tell me what I want to hear. Drifttail's face was a mask of frozen agony as his interrogator's claws pierced his hide. Gulo hissed. The beast who was like me, when did he pass by here? Drifttail was not stupid. He knew he had to say something to keep himself alive, so he resorted to a lie. 4 nights ago, this beast passed here going to the east. Gulo tightened his cruel grip. The stone he carried with him, of what size was it? Drifttail quickly reckoned to himself that if any beast were to carry a stone on a long journey, it could not be too huge. He babbled on, hoping to buy himself some time. Not big a stone, only the size of an apple. Gulo's voice dropped to a whisper. It sounded like a blade scraping across glass. Those who lie are bound to die. Runai and the other rats, having heard the screams, huddled together in alarm. The same white fox, Zerek, came with the 4 guards. He pointed to Runai. Bring this one next. Lifted clear of the ground, Runai was borne away, whimpering. I never did nothing. Drifttail is chief. The river rat was flung roughly to the ground, landing face down, not daring to look up. However, he was compelled to obey the voice of his captor. Look at me, rat. I am Gulo the Savage. One terrified glance from Runai told him all. The rat was staring into the face of a living nightmare. An image flashed through Runai's mind of an unfledged sparrow facing a serpent. Gulo's sadistic nature revelled in tormenting those he held helpless. Would the name be called, rat? Gulo watched, amused by his victim's stammering. Runai. The wolverine spat out fragments of scorched feather. Tell me, what do you eat? It was a strange question. Runai tried to compose himself and answer as best he could. Fishes and bird egg, maybe bird if you catch him. More time just the roots and berries. Gulo leaned forward. The smile that crept over his evil face was not a pleasant sight. Runai caught a whiff of his fetid breath as the savage whispered. Do you know what is the best of food? Can you tell me what Gulo and his warriors like to eat? Can you guess? Puzzled, the river rat shook his head. No. The wolverine bared his awesome fangs. We eat any beast that moves, birds, fish, snakes, rats. Runai's good eye widened as he mouthed the word. Rats! Gulo nodded, his savage eyes glittering insanely. Runai gave a strangled moan and fainted with fright. The wolverine kicked the senseless rat. Take this weak fool and feed him to my warriors. Bring the next one here. The handsome white fox, Shard, who was Gulo's leading captain, was standing behind the drum. He leaned over and spoke respectfully into his master's ear. Methinks we will learn naught from these creatures, Lot. Thy power over them is so terrible they cannot talk. Soon you will have slain them all. Gulo growled impatiently, but he heeded Shard's counsel. So what would your method be, Shard? The white fox had his answer ready. Let me question the rats, Lot. 'Tis clear they have not seen thy brother, nor do they know what the walking stone is. Mayhap I will get some information from this one when he revives. Then you can do what you will with the rest. Just allow me to try, O savage one. Gulo picked a fragment of feather from between his fangs. If they know not of Asgore or my walking stone, How can the brainless idiots tell you anything? Shard spoke soothingly to placate his ferocious master. One may catch more birds with honey than with stones, Lord. I have my ways. Ofttimes creatures will tell me things they thought they did not know. Mayhap the rats not know thy brother or the stone, but methinks they would know where a beast carrying such treasure would go to hide it. 'Tis better finding out such information than merely slaying and eating them by. Gulo had always been a beast of swift action, never of deep thoughts. He paused a moment, weighing his decision before staring at his captain through narrowed eyes. Thou art cunning, Shard, but foxes were ever clever beasts. Can you find out such things for me? The fox bowed. I live only to serve the mighty Gulo. Throughout the remainder of the day, the wolverine rested, eating and taking his ease, letting his clever captain take care of future planning and strategy. Gulo knew that if any scheme did not please him, he could change it to suit himself at a single stroke. Shard sat with his mate, Frita, who watched him with calculating eyes. So then, is the savage still devouring everything that moves, or has he started using his brain and not his fangs? Shard gave a swift glance around, making sure no beast was party to their conversation. He tapped his forehead. Nay, 'tis I who's Gulo's brain. He is merely a dangerous weapon which must be controlled. I will need your help to question the rats. We must learn more about this warm land of plenty. This place is a paradise. Frita agreed. Yeah, far better than the lands of ice beyond the great sea. Tell me what I must do to aid thee, Shard. Eventide fell softly over the flatlands in a wash of crimson and purple. Gulo the Savage lounged by his fire, picking over the bones of a pike. He looked up expectantly as Shard approached. The white fox hunkered down, slightly out of the wolverine's reach. It was always wise. Shard had learned through experience to take such precautions in the presence of Gulo. Casting aside the pike bones and licking his claws, Gulo half closed his glittering eyes. Well, what news do you bring me, Captain? Shard made his report. It is as you said, O savage one. The rats know naught of the stone or thy brother, but in the early winter two beasts, a hedge pig and a burrower, were espied travelling northeast into the woodlands which lie ahead. Betwixt them they pulled a cart. Gulo came instantly alert. What was in this cart? Shard shrugged eloquently. Who could say? They had entered the woodlands before the rats could catch up with them. Those two beasts were the only creatures who moved through this territory since the rats have been here. Mayhaps we could hazard a guess. The cart could have contained Asko, fleeing thy wrath, hiding from view with the walking stone. Gulo yawned moodily. I grant thee, 'tis possible, but where would they be going? And why should they be hiding Askor and taking him with them, eh? The white fox explained his reasoning. Ask thyself, what resistance could two lowly creatures put up against a wolverine? As to whence they have gone, the rats will know of such a place. 'Tis a great stone fortress called Redwall. They say many great treasures are stored within its walls. The rat you ordered slain ran nigh. He knows exactly where 'tis to be found. A good thing we did not slay him, Lot. Gulo, ignoring his captain's object lesson, was clearly excited. The rats can take us there. Shard touched his sword hilt, smiling thinly. He loves life too much to refuse. Gulo showed his fangs as his claws began working eagerly. Shard noticed the insane light burning in his eyes. You did well, Shard. We will go to this place of treasures. What did you say is called? The white fox repeated the name. Redwall.